Hey everybody, Steve Baskis here. Welcome to the show. On today's show, I talk to a gentleman who's a jack of all trades. He's a blind man, and he helps the blind and visually impaired in many different ways. He's a musician, producer. Well, meet Kevin.
I am a self-employed, kind of all-around music audio guy and online vocal recording for clients and production stuff and teaching with IC Music and other things. So if there's a 1099, I'm always looking for it. Total since birth. I should have clarified. It's not like we create stuff because we think it's going to make us rich or we're going to make a bunch of money. And, we create art because it's a wonderful thing to do. What is wrong with trying to make something to where you've removed barriers?
Kevin speaks about a lot of different things in this episode. His life, challenges of being blind, motivation, adaptability, how he helps people, and his work. Let's hear what he has to say about his blindness.
Optic nerve atrophy. So every time someone sees a study where they can repair vision, it's always not my eye condition. So I don't think they'll ever figure out how to repair the optic nerve in a way that's, restorative. And I could care less either way, but everybody loves to send me stuff about people getting bionic chips. And I'm like, yep, that doesn't help me. That doesn't help me. That doesn't help me.
Blindness is challenging. I asked Kevin, does it frustrate him sometimes when he hears certain things from people, especially those people or individuals who have not encountered someone blind or are in a hurry? And he had this to say.
You have to walk that weird balance of, is this worth getting angry over? Or is it just somebody being like, they're being their way? There are days when you need to correct, somebody would need to step out and say, come on, that's a stupid question or out of the line or whatever, when you need to advocate for yourself. But you will run into these people where you feel it in their gut that they're just well-meaning people and they literally genuinely want to engage with you and they're just trying to find a way to do it. You kind of feel it in your head. So sometimes if somebody comes up with a really ridiculous question, I may not get irritated because I just feel the person, it's like, oh, they don't really mean that. I know what they mean. Yes, I'll answer that. Not a problem. I think angry is for me, when I see planned ignorance or planned microaggressions, and I even hate some of these politically correct words like microaggressions, but then sometimes you look at things like this where you go, yeah, that's a microaggression. You really, like when you go to the airport, okay, is he with you? Things like they want to feel like this inconvenience will be taken care of by somebody else. I get angry.
Both Kevin and I have very different life experiences in the sense of blindness and living with the ability to see. See, Kevin was born blind. I was not. I lost my sight at 22 years of age. And so sometimes we have these specific ideas about the world around us because of our experiences, because of how we grew up. And I asked Kevin if he had ever been disabled or his life had been flipped upside down, traumatically changed.
I mean, I've had several stomach surgeries, so there were times where I was physically limited to what I could do. My first surgery was awful as far as recovery because I had the hiatal hernia thing. My first surgery was really bad. It was so bad I thought about maybe, okay, it's right before college. Maybe I'll take this semester off. And I just bought a Mac and Pro Tools, and I didn't know anything, and I thought maybe I can use this to learn this. My parents, because that's where I was living at the time, and they were like, my parents are like the the king and queen of independence. They get it, right? So they're like, but they're telling me, do not go up and down the stairs without our assistance because you can't support your weight. I was like, F that. And I figured out how to crawl up the stairs until they didn't like that either.
Hey, sorry, I wanted to interrupt and add some words myself. I lost my sight at 22, and when I was in blind rehab in the Veterans Administration, I met a lot of veterans that were a lot older than me. And I remember one of them telling me, because he had lost his sight recently, like within a week of us meeting, that he was done, that life was really over. He thought he had lived a great life, but he did not want to go through this change, this traumatic change. And he said it was hard for him to adapt, to learn new things. And it's important to note that this veteran I was speaking to was a lot older than me, in his 80s. There's something about age and our ability to bounce back and adapt. Let's listen to Kevin.
It's weird. Like early in my 20s, I've been that, like, to hell with it. Let's adapt. Let's figure it out. Let's level this up. Let's do a little course correction. Crawling up the stairs, which because I was told without a shadow of a doubt, don't do this on your own. But I said, screw that. So then you're crawling up the stairs. Nowadays, I'm really struggling with, like, I'm thinking about ways that I need to kind of adapt things, but like, do I really have the mental energy? And that's something I need to get past. It's childish. I'm kind of that who cares mindset, which is terrible. I'm not even justifying it. So I'm trying to figure out ways it's almost like you've got to do like brain hacks to get yourself into a headspace to do something or whatever. And so, like, the adaptability thing, I could really use that again because that's great when you have it, and right now I'm just kind of doing that. Do I really want to adapt? My family's always been this encouraging, like, you could go and you're a great learner. You could really learn anything. And I'm always looking at them saying, yeah, but do I really have the mental energy?
I can really relate to what Kevin's saying. Actually, I took like 11 months off from doing this podcast because, well, I wanted to learn different things. But it's a lot of work to put these things together, to spend the time with people, to edit what we say and to present it in a certain way so people can understand it. Kevin goes on to say something about science, about how we can harness something that's within us, especially during those times of accomplishment, and it can lead us to do great things, to just do things.
It's that whole, you get that dopamine dump when you're like, I'm going to do a podcast. I'm going to do this, it's going to be on Japanese anime or whatever. I'm so passionate about this, and then after like 2 or 3 episodes of editing it, that dopamine dump gets overshadowed by, really, like 4 hours to edit this? Do I really want to do that? And then that's where like the pod fading comes off. That's what they called it. People that would do a podcast and then just fade into the, but like, if we can concentrate on the dopamine dump of accomplishment, whether that's like putting something together or learning a new thing so that now we know how to code and we never did before, kind of thing. If we concentrate on those mountaintop dopamine dumps, that would spur us forward to do more things.
So I asked Kevin if he had all the money in the world and resources right now, what would he do?
Okay, right now my big thing is design. Like, I want to learn the basics of being a maker and design, especially when it comes to like electronics. Um, there are so many frustrating things about the way that products are designed to me, like things that I feel like somebody with this multi-$100,000 degree in UX and UI and all this stuff. Like, why is certain things done a certain way? It makes no sense. The user hates it. They're always on forums beefing about it. So why is this done that way? And I want to learn those things because I'd like to like it'd be so great to do a very basic um prototype of something.
Kevin's a vocalist, and he sings for different bands and other musicians. And I was wondering about his work.
I use services like Air Gigs. That's my main one. And people hire me and they'll send me like, here's the track, the instrumental, here's another version of it with the vocal on it. Here's a document with the lyrics. And they hire me to uh maybe they write and they don't sing, or they sing but they're not confident in their singing. They don't sing well enough to make something pitchable. So they're like, we want to show this to such and such and such. We need a good vocal on it. And so they hire me, and then I interpret it how I kind of trying to combine what they're doing with something that would work vocally. Sometimes people have ideas about melody that actually are terrible ideas, or they have no idea of melody at all. I've gotten that end of the spectrum, but most people have an idea what they're looking for stylistically, and they just want somebody who is a confident singer to go and retrace what they've done with something that's more permanent. I have had moments where clients have sent me something that is so bad that I've had to make a melody from that I've like not had um any interest in finishing it, and I've had to struggle through it. But like if somebody handed me a thing and needed polka production done, I would find love in that.
Kevin works for a company called IC Music. He teaches a navigational course, which is a course that basically helps someone who's blind or visually impaired better understand how to use their screen reader to navigate their computer. He also helps them understand Pro Tools, the digital audio workstation that I'm learning. Anyway, here's what Kevin had to say about IC Music and how long he's been there.
Since its inception, uh that was like 2013, 2012. I mean, I was at the I was at the NFB convention and I got a call from a guy named Byron. Um, and I was gonna go to I don't know if it was the exhibit hall or go to an afternoon generals. I don't know if you've ever been to these conventions or not, but this general session where speakers and everything are happening. Byron derailed my entire afternoon. So I did not leave my hotel room to go wherever I was going to go because I was talking to Byron. And he was, explaining, hey, man, look, I'm new, I'm newly blinded a second time. And I've been using Logic, but I've learned about Pro Tools. And, would you be willing to train me? Because I got recommended. And as I'm training him, he starts divulging this idea that he has. And I stuck with him. We would meet like once or twice a week, coming up with curriculum for the very first, type of training that we were going to provide. And he had this vision for this, amazing place where people could learn everything from voiceover to Pro Tools to how to, uh, set things up with an Avalon preamp, all of that stuff. And as of 2014 or whatever, after we did all this work, I mean, he did all this work. What am I talking about? I'm the guy who kind of was this cheerleader and rah rah, sis boom ba. Yes, I'll help you write curriculum. Um, he did all the work though. He's the guy that like went and advocated all this stuff that I have no idea. It's over my pay grade. So we had our first set of learners in 2014. I think we had 2 that year. I've been there since the beginning.
I asked Kevin about the challenges of being a teacher.
The challenge for me a lot of times is that if I run into a pitfall, like maybe a learner who is very far behind on their computer skills for whatever reason. Now I'm paranoid because I'm like, I have to complete this curriculum because we're being funded by state agencies, and I take that very seriously.
Sure.
And I take because I'm the guy who beats the drum all day long, like music and post editing and audio and creative endeavors are worthwhile money makers if the talent and the tenacity is there, and we have to prove that all the time to these state agencies. And so when you get somebody who's far behind on their computer skills, you're like, I cannot complete the curriculum, and then you start to get paranoid, and then you're like, maybe this isn't a good idea. But you know, sometimes I've had to learn to consider the situation. So one of my learners wasn't they weren't necessarily using this knowledge to immediately try to find work and start a business. They just wanted, they were a war veteran, and they wanted something as a something to do, and something to grow their mind. And they've always been interested in music, and just helping them get to the point where they're creating a session from a template and recording tracks and making that work that was a blessing to them. And sometimes I tend to take this very seriously because I know that we're state agencies. We are allied with state agencies and everything, and sometimes I have to kind of learn to really be willing to consider the situation and then adapt. And it's you know, and I'd like to think I'm the touchy feely guy that's like artistic, and it's like, but it's a blessing to them to learn how to create. I'm like, yes, but we need the state's blessings. We need
Music is such a powerful thing. Think about your favorite movie and watching it without music. It would be such a different experience. Kevin and I are very lucky to live in this day and age where hardware and software is becoming more and more accessible for us, giving us the ability to create art, to create something that moves and inspires people.
It's not like we create stuff because we think it's going to make us rich or we're going to make a bunch of money. And we create art because it's a wonderful thing to do. But then when you have to spend money to create the art, you have to figure out the economics of doing that. And you either learn a skill that you didn't have, so you don't have to hire it out, or you wait until you can hire it out. So I think, I think the niching is a good thing when it comes to, like, if you're going to promote mixing, you could just say, I do nothing but badass metal mixes, which is what some guy did. He's from the podcast called The Six Figure Home Studio, and that's what he does. That's when you see his stuff. It's like badass metal mixes. The guy that he works with is nothing but a mastering engineer, and has a certain genre that he's looking at. And I think for something like that, niching down is really important. Unfortunately, if you're a one-man show like I am as an artist, you end up having to really like spread out when you don't have the money to automate something or hire something done. Like, I need to hire this mix engineer to mix my record. Now I've got to learn how to mix a record. I'll buy some courses, and so now you're like you're working on getting that skill so that later on you can release a record and have a mix that's okay to your ears.
Kevin had some final words to say.
I'm always up for adventure, and I think what I have to when it comes to the whole mental energy thing, does it really matter? I've been doing a lot of that kind of negative approach of late. The thing is, really, when it boils down to it, everything we do, in a sense, is it's an adventure. There's a journey there. It's not necessarily where you end up. It's the actual process of getting there is where the growth happens. The changes happen that let you plot yet another course later on as you incorporate more skills. And I really need to explore, this whole thing, my whole approach, and try to take my own advice and find some adventure in some of the things that I'm like, well, does it make an economic sense to do X, Y, Z? Well, does it really matter? How do we just make an adventure out of it and make a damn record? That's what I need to tell myself, I think.
Hey, you made it to the end of the show. Thanks so much for tuning in. And if you like it, please share it with your friends. We're always looking for people to be on the show. So send me a message, steve@baskis360.com. Check out the website, baskis360.com. Until next time, take care. This is Steve signing out.